Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Tanner on this Victory Monday. How are you doing today, Cody?
Oh, James, I'm doing fantastic. It is a Victory Monday. I'm in another state again. I'm back in Pennsylvania now, James. For those of you that don't know.
Hit the claps, hit the claps.
Yeah, no. I don't know if they work twice, do they? No.
We'll find out.
But yeah, so I'm doing splendid. Was very exciting to watch that Steelers victory yesterday with my parents. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend, doing well. Tough to do bad on a Victory Monday. Really.
That is true. It is very hard to do bad on a Victory Monday. We have a lot to talk about with this. Obviously, there's pregame things that we happened. If you guys ever want to get the pregame updates early, go ahead and follow us on TikTok. James will be now posting the pregame injuries and inactives on either I'm assuming Sundays just before the game or Thursdays before the game, whenever the games are. But excited for that. Keep an eye on those updates. And James, we're going to talk about them right now. The two first ones, James Pierre, longtime Steelers cornerback, got a game-sealing interception last year, 2 years ago against Denver. And John LeGlue, another longtime Steelers player, practice squad player, bouncing around, practice squad 53. Both elevated for game day. Both were going to be able. James Pierre being the emergency cornerback, also with Gunner. Did he play Gunner?
He started at Gunner.
Okay,
and had a
I didn't
real
see
nice
him.
Game. Forced a couple of fair catches on this game. It was nice to see that from a Gunner again. We've had some good coverage from like Ben Skoranek. I thought he had a nice first couple of games. James Pierre took it to that next level of what we saw a lot with the duo of him and Miles Boykin, where the two of them met at the return man and there'd be no return.
Yep.
So very nice to see some return men saying, "Oh, no, I don't want to get hit," and waving that arm and saying, "Nope, I'll take the fair catch."
Yeah. And then John LeGlue, obviously being the emergency tackle with the injury of Troy Fatanu.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac Seumalo was still out. We'll get to that. Troy Fatanu actually went to IR, which is concerning to some extent.
It's scary.
And dude, because of last week, I think, and what we saw out of Broderick Jones, it was more scary. This week was a little bit different. We'll get to that later. But Troy going to IR is not good news for the Steelers offensive line. It's not a good time. James, do you want to go over the inactives?
I will, yes. And real quick on the Fatanu news, there's a lot of reports out fearing that this could be a significant injury that could cost him a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the sidelines in plain clothes for what that's worth. And I didn't see crutches. So my guess is he just probably slapped a heavy-duty brace on and was just walking around on the sidelines. But that's a good sign, because if he would have had like a real significant tear, he either would not have been on the sidelines or would have been on the sidelines with crutches, is my guess. So probably this is more of a do we need to do surgery versus can rest and recovery heal it kind of decision that's attempting to be made at this point. But at the bare minimum, 4 weeks is a good idea, which is what he will absolutely have now that he is on the injured reserve. The inactives, as Cody just requested, Russell Wilson, who again was the number 3 emergency quarterback, Roman Wilson, so not quite ready to play yet, Darius Rush, your boy Terrell Edmonds,
Thank you.
Isaac Seumalo, and Michael Pruitt. So not a lot of surprises here. We were hoping to see Roman Wilson dressed for the game. Unfortunately, he's unable to return quite yet, but turning the corner. He did practice on Friday full, so we did get the Thursday, Friday back-to-back full practices that we were hoping for, something I touched on at TikTok. If you listen to our TikTok channel, watch that TikTok channel, you'll see that. So those are the kind of updates that I'm going to be giving, saying, hey, look for Pierre to play Gunner. He absolutely did play Gunner and played it well. And then the news in the right direction with Roman Wilson. So we do have some progress. We'll see how this goes here next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, we will see how it goes. I'm excited to see Roman Wilson. I mean, we got to see a lot of Scotty Miller in this game, and that was enjoyable. I think Roman Wilson could be a step up from him. So excited to see the potential with him. Let's go ahead and, James, we're going to dive right into this Week 3 matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. Home opener for Pittsburgh, their first week at home, after Justin Fields led us to 2 road victories. James, and it was a great time. And I feel you're going to do it. I got to let you do it. I know it. Cracking open the energy drink.
Cracking one. I know it's an energy drink. It's not a beer. Don't.
Not yet. Not yet. So, I mean, this is kind of what we've grown to expect to some degree. I mean, Justin Fields improved again. Justin Fields had a better game, and that's with him having his first turnover. I thought it was very notable that he had his first turnover in this game, and I don't think it was completely his fault. You said it best during the game. You said it wasn't a great decision to throw the ball where he did, but the turnover was definitely not his fault per se. Ball got tipped up in the air, got tipped up again, and it just wound up going to, of course, the former Pittsburgh Steelers, Bud Dupree.
Of all people.
Yeah. So Chargers, listen, Bud, you got your pick, but we'll leave with the W. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, 25 of 32 for 245 yards, averaged 7.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown pass to Calvin Austin, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and 1 interception, sacked 2 times for a loss of 13 yards. But overall, I think this was his best game yet.
Yeah, I would say definitively it was his best game yet. The first half, the offense did struggle a little bit, but as the game went on, he really seemed very comfortable using the entire field. That was a big takeaway for me, is there was no area of the field he was uncomfortable with using. I would say he probably took less deep shots this game than he has in other games, and had a way more productive game, really used the middle of the field a ton. We saw it with Scotty Miller. We saw it with Pat Fryermuth. We saw it with Calvin Austin III. It was basically, who's open, I'm hitting them. I'm going through my progressions. I understand where people are coming from. Even the one throw that he had to Calvin Austin, the biggest play of the game, right? The 55-yard touchdown pass. It wasn't a deep pass, but it was precision, timing, anticipation, knowing where the safety was coming from to help, and getting the ball there before the safety could get there to make the play on it. And then it's just off to the races, and good luck catching a 4.3 340 guy.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Most teams don't have a guy that can run that, let alone somebody on defense that can run it.
Yeah. I'm looking at his passing chart here too, from Next Gen Stats, and he had 4 passes that were inside the hash marks. And then he had 3 more that were within probably a yard of it. And one of those was the touchdown. So, and on those, what did I say? 4, 5, 6, 7, on those 7 throws, 5 completions, 2 incomplete, and one of them being a touchdown. So we'll absolutely take that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. So huge steps in the right direction for him. If you tell me that stat line before a game, I'm a little worried that it didn't turn out well because of the interception. But knowing that he also had the rushing touchdown on top of the passing touchdown really does lead you to see the success, right? We've been asking for it all season long. We needed two offensive touchdowns to feel a little better about things. So one of your keys to the success this week was 2 offensive touchdowns, and we absolutely got the 2 offensive touchdowns, both of them from Justin Fields.
Yep. Yeah. And I just enjoy the fact that I feel like each week we've slowly used the middle of the field more. If you guys are following us on any kind of social media, I will be posting a picture of these on our Facebook and Instagram, just kind of comparing these passing charts for the first 3 weeks, because it's impressive to see how he's just matured and how the offense as a whole has matured and grown and become this thing where the passing chart went from just straight on the outside week 1 to sprinkled throughout a little bit on week 2. And then this past week 3, it's everywhere. I mean, it's fun. It's exciting. I also think that his pocket presence was a lot better today. There were a couple times where he was forced to move up and still made some throws, or forced to get out of the pocket and was able to scramble and get a couple extra yards. I think Justin Fields is really growing into his role as the Pittsburgh Steelers starter. And this will lead to a question that we might as well talk about right now while we're on the topic of Justin Fields. When Russell Wilson's healthy, should he get the role still? Should he start?
Boy, is it getting more difficult week after week, isn't it? Last week, if you asked me, I would have said, okay, yeah, you're probably going to put Russ back out there. And now this is a very difficult decision to make. How do you pull the hot hand? It's kind of like the end of last year, right?
Yep.
Mason Rudolph had the hot hand. How in the world do you pull him when he's winning you games and being more productive than you had seen from anybody else? And that's what's going on now. Granted, we haven't seen Russell Wilson in the regular season in a Steelers uniform yet.
Nope.
So there is no comparison at this point. But what is very clear is that if you're going to run with one of the two of these guys as your future quarterback, one of them's a heck of a lot younger than the other one, man.
Yep.
And it's the guy that's putting up some real nice games right now and playing his best football as a professional right now in our uniform for our team.
So do you want to know my opinion on what I can kind of expect Mike Tomlin to do as a very Mike Tomlin thing to do?
Go for it.
I kind of feel like we're going to continue to see Justin Fields starting. And when Russell Wilson gets to the point where he's healthy enough to play, instead of seeing a couple plays and packages with Justin Fields being the highlight, we'll see a couple plays and packages with Russell Wilson being the highlight. And I think that that'll be a way that Mike can kind of soothe the situation with Russell, say, hey, we're going to stick with the hot hand right now, but we want to give you the chance to continue on with what you're doing, continue on with your healing process, and see how you perform in those situations. Kind of like hypothetically giving Russell a chance to win his job, but I don't think that's going to be what's happening at all. I think we just want to stick with the hot hand and until there's actually concern. I mean, he could have lost this game with that stat line, 25 of 32 with 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and I still would have said that was an improvement. I still would have said that he had a better game. First time over 200 yards, and he almost got to 250. Like, just very impressed with how he's going. I don't think you can make any kind of excuse to move on to Russell Wilson, even if he's healthy starting today. If he's at practice right now, says, Coach, I'm 100% ready to go. Medical clearance, everything's there. Justin Fields still getting first team reps.
Yeah, it would be very tough to justify. You'd literally have to say, well, we're comparing resumes and Russell has the better resume, so that's who we're going to go with.
Yep.
But it would be, I'll tell you what, if you make that decision, you go back to Russell Wilson and he puts up a stinker, oh man, the Steeler Nation is going to be
lose it
mad. Yeah.
And here's my concern with that. Here's almost my worry is say that we make the transition to Russell Wilson and he comes out and let's just hypothetically say he throws 17 to 23 and 156 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. What are you going to say?
Did we win or lose? That's what I'm going to
say. Say we won.
If we won, it's tough for me to move on from that guy.
Okay. And that's exactly what Justin Fields did in week 1. Those were his exact stat lines. It wasn't very impressive. Mm-hmm. It's tough because we could, I don't know. It's just, if you guys are watching or listening, please message us, comment on this video if it's on YouTube, and let us know what you think they should do. We want to talk about it. We want your input, want your opinion. I'm just very interested to see how they're going to handle this. James, let's not waste too much time on this. We could talk about this literally all day. Let's transition over to talking about the running backs.
Yeah, let's start with Najee Harris, as is fitting. Najee ran very angry in this game. He ran like he was fighting for his second contract, which in a way I think he really is every time he touches the ball. But I don't know how many times in this game somebody attempted to tackle him and he got that stiff arm on that person's helmet and bounced their head off the grass and kept on going. It must have happened at least 3 or 4 times in this game. He just ran very hard, very physical, and it was not uncommon for it to take 2 to 3 guys to take him down on these runs. If he would have had a little bit more room to run, I think we would have seen a 130, 140-yard day. As it was, you see 18 carries for 70 yards and a 3.9-yard average, and you say, it's okay. if you watch the game, it was way more impressive than the stat line reads. He fought for every single yard that he got in this game.
And I feel like most of his yards came in the second half too. It was, I think he had a very, very small amount of rushing yards in the first half.
Yeah, the team in general did. They had like 20 yards or something rushing in the first half. It was not good.
Yeah, it was a tough time in the first half, but they came out in the second half and kind of took off. So good.
And the only guy that ran better than him was Cordarrelle Patterson, right?
Yeah, on 4 carries, but still, we'll take it.
Each one of them, he looked explosive. Big plays, 10 plus yards on like every one, it seemed like. Ends the game 4 carries for 33 yards. That's an impressive average. So I thought Cordarrelle Patterson had his best game yet as a Steeler. And Jaylen Warren didn't get a lot of play in this. My understanding is that Mike Tomlin limited him because he didn't think that he looked 100% healthy on the field.
Yep. And I'm okay with that. Totally okay with that.
Especially since he was dealing with a hamstring earlier. Let's not tweak it and turn it into a tear and then lose him the rest of the year.
Yeah. Justin Fields, obviously the solo rushing touchdown on the day, was a good little scamper. It was an option play. He had the option to hand the ball off to the running back or keep it himself. He kept it himself. Good choice. Scampered right in and hopped on into the end zone. Real easy run. I want to say it was a 5-yard rushing touchdown. But we are here for that. Again, not crazy stat line. Not even really. I mean, it was 112 yards, 114 yards total rushing. Nothing crazy, but it was enough to get the job done. And when it mattered the most, especially at the end of the game, we were able to run and get some first downs. Najee Harris at one point probably could have ran and forced his way into the end zone for another touchdown, but he kind of slowed down and looked for some extra contact and made sure to go down at the 1 yard line. And you know what? I was watching this with my parents and they were talking about it. My mom was, why wouldn't they just score a touchdown here? Why wouldn't they just punch it in? Why are we kneeling it? Well, one, then you're technically giving the team another chance. If they go down to score a touchdown, kick an extra point, onside kicks can still happen and crazy things happen in the NFL all the time. And it's just Pittsburgh's a respectable franchise and organization. They're not trying to run up the score on anybody. And this team is just happy to leave with a W. I mean, they're literally been counted out of every single game they've been in so far, and they continue to win. They continue to impress. So get down on the 1 yard line, kneel the ball a couple times, leave with a victory. So
yep, it's the safe way to assure the win. Sure, it's much more glorious to go ahead and pound that ball in. And honestly, I thought Najee Harris deserved that touchdown, so it was tough to not see him get it.
Yep.
But once they lined up in victory formation, I said, yeah, this is classic Tomlin right here. He's going to win with class, and he's not going to rub this in the face of his opponent, which is a very smart move in this case. Because why?
Harbaugh.
This head coach's brother is the head coach for the Baltimore Ravens. And if you rub it in his face, you tick his brother off, who's then going to tell his players who already have a habit of doing so to take cheap shots on you on the next 2 games that we got coming up against them still later on in the season. So a very classy move from Mike Tomlin. Also a smart move to protect his players so that nobody gets injured on a play that doesn't matter. And it doesn't irritate people for no reason and make them want to take cheap shots at you.
Yep.
Because unfortunately it happens in the NFL, whether you want it to or not. So if you win with class like that, it takes a little bit less of the desire away for people.
Yeah. Before we go to the receiving room, let's talk offensive line real quick. Obviously there were good rushing holes towards the end of the game. I thought at the beginning of the game, the rushing attack looked very stagnant. It didn't look like we were pushing the line. I felt like we were getting beat on a lot of different gaps. I don't know what they changed. I don't care what they changed. I'm happy it worked. But I do think the pass protection was also better. 2 sacks looks bad on paper, but like I said, I think I said it last week. If you're going to sack our quarterback twice every single game, I'm okay with that. Like I'm not okay with it, but you know what I'm saying? It's somewhat reasonable. Yeah. I'd rather see him get sacked twice than 5 times in a game.
And one of those sacks came off of one of the sacks came off of a play action where Derwin James came in completely unblocked. So it's not that somebody missed a blocking assignment. It's just that Derwin James made a great play.
Yep.
You don't anticipate the safety blitzing in that situation, so you don't account for it because it's a play action.
Yep.
So Justin Fields turned around and there was Derwin James in his face and there was no avoiding it. So really only one sack allowed by the offensive line, which is great, honestly. Broderick Jones, a nice bounce back game.
Yep.
Did he get beat here and there? Of course he did. It wasn't a perfect game for him, but drastically better than the one series that we saw last week. Makes you a little bit more confident going into future games here. Also at the left guard position, we saw for the first time this season Mason McCormick. He got sprinkled in a little bit, rotated in, and then later on in the game, coincidentally, when a lot of the success running the ball happened, as a sixth offensive lineman, Mason McCormick was out there as a tackle eligible. You kept on seeing him walking up to the referees and go like this. That is the sign saying, I am an eligible receiver to the referee. He kept on doing that over and over. He was the sixth guy. And I think, honestly, I bet that was the plan for Broderick Jones until Fatanu got hurt.
Yep.
And then they said, you know what? McCormick can do it. Let's just have him do it. And it worked well. And we really had some nice big holes in that second half and got some real nice push in that second half too. So nice to see the coaching staff adapting as time's going on. Arthur Smith adapting, Mike Tomlin adapting, all these guys changing things up, being able to adjust on the fly, even as much as, hey, our starting tackle went down on Friday. We got to put the backup in. Can somebody else do this role? Can we teach them up on it real quick and make sure they know how they have to line up and where they need to be and how to report correctly every single play? You didn't see one procedural penalty on Mason McCormick when he did this.
No,
not once.
And you talked about penalties earlier. Let's talk about them real quick. As a whole, we only had 3 for 15. 3 penalties for 15 yards today. Not bad. The Chargers had 7 for 69. So we won that battle. We got better. We didn't
First
commit
time
the
this year.
stupid. Yeah. First time this year. Hopefully that becomes a trend. But was just exciting to see that. I mean, overall, I think the offensive line is improving. I think it's awkward to say that because sometimes they have, especially with the running game, I felt like we just could not do it this morning. We could not, or yesterday morning, excuse me, at the beginning of the game. We could not get the running game going in that first half. I think Najee had like 3 or 5 yards the first half, and then the rest of his yards came in the second half, which was just crazy. You want to switch over to receivers?
Yeah, let's talk about it, man. And we touched a bit about it when we were talking about Justin Fields, but there's more to talk about. As we said, the ball was spread out very evenly in this game. A lot of guys getting 4 catches or 3 catches or 5 catches in this game. And just really, it shows that the team is more versatile than we thought, right? And a lot of this, like you look down this list, the one name that you're not going to see is Van Jefferson. He got poked in the eye early in this game and was unable to return back into the game because of the blurriness coming out of that eye. That created an opportunity for more options for Scotty Miller, who had a real nice game. A lot of options for Calvin Austin III, who had an excellent game, his best game as a professional thus far. George Pickens did his thing as usual, didn't get as many targets as he normally does, but given the opportunities, I mean, 5 receptions on 7 targets? That's a great percentage, man. So George still doing his thing. Pat Freiermuth having another nice game.
Unfortunately, he had
on the season, and he had a chance at it. It was tough. It was a tough catch, but he did get his hands on it. So 4 catches on 5 targets for his first incompletion of the season. And he had a nice catch too that got called back. I was upset about that. I wasn't upset that the penalty was called necessarily, just that it was like a 20 or 25 yard play. And most of his plays have been shorter thus far this season. And it took away his biggest chunk play. And I was like, come on, man. Pat finally gets one, you take it away.
He was feeling it. You could tell when he got up, he was like, motivated and hyped up. And that was once the offense just started getting going. And that was a good time to see that. But yeah, Calvin Austin, like you said, 4 receptions, 95 yards, a touchdown, his best game. George 5 for 7 for 57. Freiermuth with the 1 incomplete pass to him, but 4 for 33. And then we got to see a little flash of Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller had a 20-yard reception at one point, 2 overall catches for 31 yards. I thought he performed well. And the 1 catch on the sideline, he easily could have got tackled behind the first down mark and made a guy miss and got some really nice extra yardage out of that play. Najee Harris had 5 receptions for 16 yards. Doesn't look crazy good of a stat line, but a lot of those were getting Justin Fields out of situations where he could have taken a sack or didn't have a running lane or anything. Got the ball up to Najee. Najee was able to pick up some yards. Cordero Patterson, 3 for 15. That was exciting to see him with those catches. Connor Hayward had 1 for 2, and I feel like he got hurt on that play. He took a second to get up after he got hit on that play. I feel like it was, I know Justin was trying to get some yards there, but it was one of those hospital passes right over the middle when there was, I think it was the safety like flying down. So I don't remember seeing Connor Hayward after that, at least not catch the ball. And then Jalen Warren had the 1 for -4, which I could not stand.
Yeah.
I think at one point Pittsburgh had 6 plays in the game that went for negative yardage.
Yeah, we saw a few in that first half where when Fields got rid of it to the running back, the linebackers and safeties were all over it, not giving the running backs anywhere to go, and made for some ugly plays and honestly some short drives because of it. So something they got to clean up in the future, either if you're going to go to the running back, go to him earlier, or somehow wait longer so that it allows for more separation from the defenders.
Yep.
Something to change that up a little bit. But if that's the biggest criticism I have of the offense from this game, is the dump offs to the running backs weren't as successful as they normally are, then I'm very happy with the offensive performance.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, totally happy with that. Put up 20 points. Again, the 2 touchdowns like I wanted them to do. That was great. Could have been 3. I'm okay that it wasn't. We talked about that. Kneeling down at the end is very respectful. Outside of that, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, James, let's talk defensive line here. I thought Connor Hayward had probably one of the most disruptive games that he's had all year. Really pushing.
How did Cameron Hayward do?
Oh, sorry, Cameron Hayward. I'm having a stroke. Yeah, Cameron Hayward. He had 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. He also hit the quarterback, 4 total tackles on the game. But there were a couple times where he was just incredibly disruptive to the run and the pass game. A couple times the quarterback had to come up into the pocket, and Hayward was pushing his man back right there. Couldn't do anything about it. I felt like a lot of times that he was involved in tackles or plays where the running back didn't have the hole to go that was supposed to be there, designed to be there, because Cameron Hayward said, nope, not this hole. And at one point, I think he manned up 2 guys at one point and was pushing the pile. So I love to see it.
There was another play where he sent a tight end like 10 yards into the backfield. Just Cam really showing his grown man strength in this game. I couldn't agree with you more. Had a nice performance. You're very dominating, very powerful. He's been pushing the pocket the first 2 games. He's been very close to sacks a couple of times. He's forced some incomplete passes. He's been hitting the quarterback, and then interceptions happen on the back end.
Yep.
He's been disruptive. He's just not been filling up the stat sheet. It's nice to get a chance to see him filling up the stat sheet a little bit this week. And with that sack, he is now a number 2 in Steelers all-time history in the sack category, only behind TJ Watt, and he's pretty far behind TJ Watt now.
Yeah, and TJ's taking strides to keep him that way. So
yeah, I think this gave him like 80.5 or 81.5 or something like that. And I think TJ might be at 99.5 now.
So 81.5 for Cam Hayward, 99.5 for TJ Watt.
Whew.
And this is TJ Watt's 107th game as a professional. And in 107 games, he has 99.5. His brother had 94.5. So he's ahead of JJ.
Bragging rights.
Yep, big time. When they were interviewing JJ about that on one of the NFL shows, and somebody made a comment about, it might have been Bill Cowher, I can't remember, but they were like, you know what they haven't seen? We haven't seen TJ Watt go out and catch a pass for a touchdown, though, because JJ did that in Houston. And then so now they're saying, well, Arthur Smith better get TJ involved on offense now. So.
And here's the dangerous thing: if they do decide to do that, which I would be stunned, I think that'll be like a later in his career kind of thing.
Probably,
maybe 3 or 4 years from now, he might want to start doing some stuff like that. But TJ played tight end in college before switching to outside linebacker. He had only played outside linebacker for like 1 or 2 seasons at Wisconsin before getting drafted in the NFL. So he's actually an accomplished tight end and could actually be quite dangerous at that given the opportunity. But I wouldn't waste too many snaps with him on offense.
Yeah. No, let's stick with the defensive stud that we have and see if
Mhm.
he can't go break some records and win some more defensive MVPs or get snubbed from them again. We'll find out. But with that being said, the other guys on the defense front, Keanu Benton had a penalty, if I'm not mistaken. The freaking delay a game penalty.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, they explained it, but it still didn't make sense to me. I didn't see anything on the replay that was like made it easily understandable. I
What
don't
they
know.
said when they were doing the replay is that it was because he changed which hand
Was
he had
down.
in the dirt,
Mm-hmm.
which was the first time I've ever heard that explanation before. But it was Tony Romo on the call, so I'm going to trust it because Tony knows more about football than a lot of people
Yep.
will ever even hope to learn.
That's true.
As much as I didn't care for Tony as a football player, as a commentator, I think he's just absolutely incredible. So I love it when Tony's calling one of our games.
Yep.
But yeah, gave you a little insight there. I didn't think Keanu Benton had a bad game, just didn't fill up the stat sheet, same as Larry Ogunjobi, right?
Yeah.
They were there, they did their job. Nothing big splash. Still not seeing the splash out of either one of them that we're hoping for as far as getting the sacks, forced fumbles, pass deflections. We're still looking for that to start happening.
Yep.
I think it's on the verge of happening now because now these quarterbacks are gonna start to get a little bit jittery.
Yep.
Right? Now that these outside linebackers are really pushing the arc and getting in there and forcing the quarterback to step up, you're stepping up right into the chest of these guys. So I think naturally, now that the sack numbers are coming up for the outside linebackers, you're going to see a switch in a couple of weeks here, or even maybe this upcoming week, where those defensive tackles and interior defensive linemen start seeing additional sacks just because they're trying to run away from TJ and Nick Herbig.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's talk about it real quick. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig. Alex Highsmith obviously went out of this game early with an injury. Unfortunately, he only registered one tackle on the game. That was it. TJ Watt had a sack that was at a very pivotal time. He was hyped about it. But let's talk Nick Herbig, man. Nick Herbig, 2 sacks on the day. One was a sack fumble. We didn't recover it, unfortunately. But again, this was a huge moment. One, because Nick Herbig's still young and growing, and we're trying to see what he develops into. I quite frankly think he's already developed into something and could potentially evolve from there. But that after that sack, James, I was looking this up before the show with you. That sack occurred in the first drive of the Chargers in the second half. And after that drive, or excuse me, before that drive, they had 173 yards on offense. So after that sack, they had -5.
Whew.
Now, just like you said in the pre-show before we started recording, you could assess a lot of that to the fact that Justin Herbert then went out in the very next drive after an Landon Roberts sack, which we'll get to that. But I honestly think that it partially got to, we just out-muscled them and out-stamina'd them. I think the fact that they practice in Latrobe and how they do things, and that's what somebody accredited it to last week. They felt like they just outlasted the other team because of their stamina was better. I think the benefits of how Pittsburgh prepares in the offseason and being at Latrobe and how they practice and how they train helped. And then on top of that, once you get that first sack, I feel like that starts messing with the quarterback. Once you hit him the first time, they're like, okay, I don't want to go through that again. Nick Herbig hits hard. Alex Highsmith hits hard. Cam Hayward hits hard. TJ Watt hits hard. Landon Roberts definitely hits hard. And all those guys registered sacks on this game. So was very exciting to see. I called Nick Herbig last year. I said 10 sacks. Who knows? Maybe this is the year he gets 10. We'll find out. I'm excited.
Well, this year your bet was that TJ Watt did not lead the team in sacks at the end of the season.
That is true.
Right now, Nick Herbig seems the favorite to be the one to upset that, especially if Alex Highsmith is going to miss any time with this groin injury, which oftentimes is the case when somebody has one. You usually miss several weeks, if not more. Cam Hayward missed half the season last year with a groin injury. So you really never know how somebody's going to heal. And it all depends on what degree that injury is, how badly torn it is, or if it's just sprained or what. So we're going to hope for a speedy recovery because Man, having all three of those guys fresh really is a weapon. That's an absolute weapon, man, and an exciting one at that. Uh, Odd point I'm going to make, and maybe this is the right place for it, maybe it isn't. An increased role DeMarvin Leal has been on the kickoff coverage all season, right?
Yeah.
As a 275-pound outside linebacker, defensive lineman hybrid, he seems to have fully converted to outside linebacker, and he looks good doing it. In fact, on kick coverage, it seemed like he got involved in the tackle a couple of times. And that's just impressive for a guy who was closer to 290, 300 pounds, trimmed down that weight, looking like he's in really good shape now. The reports were early in the preseason process that he was in the best shape ever. You hear that a lot. But we had also heard that the year before he came in overweight. So looks like DeMarvin Leal kind of turning the corner for us and possibly being that solution. I know that was something that I put out at the end of last season. Hey, tell him to just focus on outside linebacker, have him drop some weight. We need a fourth outside linebacker anyway. He could really be the guy. That's exactly what's going on now. Not saying they're listening to the show, but they're clearly listening to the show and taking my advice on things.
Yeah, as they should. As they absolutely should.
As they should. Let's move to the middle linebackers. We've bragged about this outside linebacker core enough, I think, for right now. Patrick Queen, let's start with the guy in the middle with the green dot. What a bounce back game for him. And I didn't think that he was bad in the first couple games, just didn't make a big splash.
No, but he made splashes.
He was everywhere, today. Man. 8 total tackles, almost had an interception where that went right through his hands. Would have been a game-changing play had he been able to squeeze his hands and get that pick. But really just very physical in this game and absolutely flying to the ball. That was one of my keys to success in this game, was a big day from the middle linebackers. We got the sack out of Elandon Roberts. We got 8 tackles out of Patrick Queen. Peyton Wilson still not making a big impact on games yet, but I felt like we had enough from those other 2 guys that he didn't really necessarily need to. So I was very happy to see that kind of performance out of Patrick Queen.
Yeah. No, I can't agree more. I thought Patrick Queen had a great game. I also thought, obviously, we talked to Landon Roberts with the sack. I thought he had a good game as well. Middle linebacker, Peyton Wilson. Oh, my gosh. I felt like he had one really good play on there. I don't remember what exactly happened. It was a run to the right side up the middle, and it could have gone for a first down, but he just grabbed on, and I felt like he was almost like planted in the ground, pulling that running back. Overall, satisfied with the improvement that this middle linebacker crew is experiencing and growing in. It feels like every aspect of football, this team is slowly improving in every single game. Sure, we didn't get any kind of turnovers this game, and that was one of the 3 keys to success I had was win the turnover battle. And of course, this is the first time we didn't do it, and that's fine. I thought that overall the team has improved in every single area. You can have improvements in the secondary and not get an interception, but I felt like the pass breakups, the things that we've experienced, and just the ability to shut down certain receivers is continuing to improve. And part of that comes from the middle linebacker crew as well. I thought the middle linebackers were not seen as a weak spot or taken advantage of in this game by any means in the passing game for the Chargers. So really liked seeing that.
Yeah, and along with your improvement in the secondary, I would say let's shout out Joey Porter for not getting flagged a bunch of times in this game, right?
Yep.
That's been an issue for him last year. That's been an issue for him this year already, not in this game. So Joey cleaning things up. In a lot of this, again, this was one of my keys to success this week, was drastically reduce the penalties.
Yep.
The coaching staff brought in referees. Mike Tomlin made sure there were referees at the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday practice. And lo and behold, we have a game with only 3 penalties. In because of it, it's a big impact on the game. You know, your negative plays or your big positive plays aren't getting reversed. And guys are able to make plays. You know, the only thing I would be concerned about going forward from this game is how is this secondary holding up injury-wise, right?
Yep.
So a couple weeks back, we had the Darius Rush injury. He had a concussion. Seems like he's okay from that, but didn't get the opportunity to dress in this game. In this game, Dante Jackson got banged up. He did come back in the game, but being a smaller guy, we're seeing that a little bit now where he's missing some time, getting injured, missing some plays. Corey Trice came in for him, and he hurt an hamstring, and we don't know how bad the hamstring is. So let's hope for the best that it's only like a week or two kind of thing, but this could be longer. That then brought James Pierre in because Darius Rush didn't dress. So a guy that has only been back with the team for less than a week ended up starting at outside corner for a number of snaps in this game. At least he's tall and fast and long. And, if you tell him just play off coverage and don't get beat deep, he knows how to do that. But don't expect him to be sticky in his coverage either. So that concerns me a bit, but great game. It's not going to show up in the stat line here, really. Minkah Fitzpatrick, I thought, had an excellent game, including a very clutch breakup in a situation where it was kind of a jump ball situation, and he got up there and batted that thing away. So it doesn't look like they even gave him credit for the pass deflection from what I'm looking at here, but he absolutely did get that on that play. And sometimes guys have a really good game and it doesn't fill up the stat sheet. And I think that's kind of what's going on with the secondary right now.
That was George Pickens last week on offense, and defense. I think it happens a lot more often because there's not always stats to show what they're doing on defense. I mean, you could have the best coverage in the world and you're not going to get a stat because a good quarterback's not going to throw the ball there. You know what I mean? So very excited to see the improvement. I thought Deshaun Elliott had one heck of a game. Making some plays, being literally just a freaking red rocket riding around. Feeling like he's not Troy Polamalu. I'm never going to make that like direct comparison, but I think he's the best safety we've had since Troy Polamalu. Like in that role.
Better than Minkah, huh?
In that role. Minkah's different in my opinion. Minkah's trying to do his own thing, get back there, get picks, but Deshaun Elliott's up there. I mean, Minkah did it too. Minkah came up a couple times and made some tackles that you don't expect a safety to get as far up and tackle as they would or as he did. But again, overall, I think this is the best, hands down, the best safety crew we've had outside of Terrell Edmonds since since Troy Polamalu, Ryan Clark days. So, yeah,
very very good stuff there. So I want to kick over to the special teams briefly.
I
thought it was a nice. What's that?
You want to kick over there, do you?
yeah, we are, man. A nice performance out of Corliss Waitman, I thought. We didn't see the balls going through the back of the end zone. So maybe that lends a little bit of credence to what you suggested last week. Maybe the difference in altitude kind of goofed him up a little bit. Balls carried a little further. Ended up going through the end zone that would not normally. I thought solid performance out of Corliss Waitman. Again, Chris Boswell, if the only thing you can say is that he missed a 62-yarder and just missed it right because it looked like he had a strong enough leg to make it otherwise. If that's the only negative you got on for a game, then Boswell had a real game. Outside of that, 2 for 2 on his extra points, 2 for 2 on his field goals, minus that long missed field goal. Calvin Austin looking like a nice threat at that punt return unit as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, a couple good plays on that. Only 2 returns for 20 yards, but again, a lot of these guys don't even get a chance to return. And he clearly ran for more than 20 yards to get those 20 yards. But very excited to see what Calvin Austin can do in the future with us moving forward. And again, Boswell, that one miss, I don't hold that against him. That was a long kick. He doesn't typically kick that from that far. That they don't often let him do that, but this game is evolving and kickers are kicking from further. And they actually, so normally on a field goal, they go 8 yards behind to set the ball down. They only went 7.
It's usually 7.
Is it 7? Okay, then maybe they only went 6 on this one. I think whatever it was, I think they actually moved the ball a yard forward to kind of help him with the distance. I don't hold that against him at all, and I think if he had another chance, he'd nail it. I mean, he had the distance. It didn't look like it when you saw the replay because it was further right. He had to kick it farther to the right. I think if he had kicked it straight on, it would have barely made it in, or at least hit the uprights or the crossbar. But that's going to end that, James, the game recap. Let's chat some other things here. What do we want to talk about?
Yeah, we wanted to touch briefly on our keys to success from last week because we were so close on nailing all of them, right?
Yeah.
So We had our Cody's first one was win the turnover battle. That was very close, honestly. The near interception from Patrick Queen, forced fumble from Nick Herbig that they recovered. We could have easily won that, but still won the game. 2 offensive TDs we did get, and then improved the third down percentage of completions. Drastically improved, was naturally 7 of 14. Cody's got to include the field goal statistic
9
and
of
make
14.
it 9. So if you go with Cody's field goal thing, then it's 9 for 14, and it's even better. My 3 were lessen the penalties drastically, which we did. We went from 10 down to 3. That didn't hold us back in this game. Penalties didn't end drives for once. Number 2, Fields needed to stop fumbling. He did not fumble in this game. It was clean quarterback to center exchanges. We also didn't have any snaps that went back and Fields wasn't ready for the ball to come. So that all got cleaned up, which is awesome. And then the middle linebackers needed to have a big day, in my opinion, because of how dominant this rushing game was for this team versus everyone else. It was not against us, and our middle linebackers definitely showed up. So looking like once in a while, you and I know what we're talking about, Cody. Like maybe we're good at this thing here.
Yeah, only every once in a while, not all the time, but we're figuring it out. We're slowly learning. James, real quick, the injuries from this game, we talked about them. Corey Trice with the hamstring injury, Alex Highsmith with the groin injury. Hopefully they don't rush Alex Highsmith back. I think with Nick Herbig having the game that he did and being a solid backup and even a potential solid starter, Nick Herbig, or we should not rush Alex Highsmith back. Make sure that groin is fully healed before he gets back out there. Van Jefferson's probably already better with the eye injury, a good night's sleep with that, but I understand that poke and then not being able to see correctly. And then we're going to also bounce out, so we'll have more injury updates later in the week before we do the pregame show for the next game. But outside of that, James, let's chat real quick about, we said we'd keep you guys updated with it. We're going to continue the Deontay Jackson trade, or Deontay Johnson and the Dante Jackson trade. James, break it down for him.
Yep. So big game out of Deontay Johnson. Catches 100+ yards receiving and a touchdown, which puts his stats in a drastically better direction. Helps that he's got Andy Dalton throwing him the ball now instead of Bryce.
Bryce Young.
Unfortunately, Bryce is looking like his career could be over already. So Deontay on 3 games now is 13 catches on 26 targets, 156 yards receiving. That is 12 yards per reception and 1 touchdown. In reverse, Dante Jackson for us has 10 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 2 pass deflections, and 1 interception. So it kind of evened out a little bit this week with Deontay Johnson having a big game and Dante Jackson having a little more quiet of a game. But Dante Jackson did not have a bad game by any means.
Nope.
He wasn't out there getting victimized. He just didn't get any picks or breakups this week.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a large part of this trade, the value that we see from it will kind of vary depending on the outcome of the games. I think if we're winning games and Dante Jackson's out there, I think that has a little bit more weight than if Deontay Johnson's having good numbers but they're not winning. Now, granted, they did win this week, but we'll see what happens moving forward if they decide to stick. If the Panthers decide to stick with Andy Dalton or go back to Bryce Young or whatever they're going to do. A lot of people are on the Bryce Young was benched too early kind of thing. I think this game completely shows that that's not the case.
Not at all.
We're not a Carolina Panthers podcast, but we can talk about that very briefly.
Yeah. And quickly on the Dante Jackson thing, I want to say just before we wrap this show up here, I think that this is just such a huge improvement for Pittsburgh. Dante Jackson doesn't have to put up a 5 or 6 interception season to be a massive upgrade over Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson. Those two were so slow last year. They were just getting burned over and over and over, and it forced Minkah Fitzpatrick to play over the top of them, and then the other side was getting victimized over and over. He's a massive upgrade without making a bunch of deflections and interceptions just because he's not getting smoked.
Yep, I agree completely. But with that being said, we are excited to see what happens with this trade. We're excited for Steelers football next week. Again, we will bring you guys a show Friday or Saturday. Not 100% certain what day. I'm back in Pennsylvania. James, maybe next week we'll be watching the game together. Who knows? We'll figure it out. Maybe next week we'll be recording together. We don't know. But we're working all the things out. We appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate you liking and following. Remember, like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe. Ring the bell. It's free. Don't cost you a thing. Don't forget the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts for James over here. Make him really, really happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.
Steelers by